So the Art of War is not a book about strategy. It is strategy, right? Rules or principles of the concept from the original author applied to one basic tactic. There is no other source. If you Google strategy, you get sets of strategies of certain fields or markets. In other words, how tactics are played out, which is strategy in application, but never the principles of strategy itself as a whole by itself, because that's impossible. Even the Art of War doesn't do that. Strategy cannot exist without a tactic. Even in planning, or those thoughts of strategy arise from tactics that you are applying them to. If you search for the definition, you'll discover it is of Greek origin. Then if you look deeper, you'll see that the Greeks got it from the Art of War by Sun Tzu. And the Art of War could be rewritten an infinite amount of times, showing how it is applied to other things beyond physical fighting, right? A doctor could apply the rules to medicine and write that version, a mechanic version, a relationship version, a computer language coding version, and so on, using the same principle as Sun Tzu's The Art of War, right? Because the hardest part had to be coming up with or realizing the principles, even though most of them are like common sense, but applying them is just, far easier. Nevertheless, there is one problem, chapter 12, for which some reason shows one of the tactics of using fire as a tactic, as a weapon, with little mention of strategy, except for one set of lines that I'm going to talk about. But this is the opposite of the other chapters, right? You can't use chapter 12 to cook eggs or program, because it's explicit use of the tactic, whereas the other chapters use the tactic to give you an explicit understanding of how to use strategy. And it didn't go into it. This is how you shoot a gun. This is how you strangle somebody. It didn't even tell you things when it told you to irritate the enemy. It didn't even tell you how to do that. How do you irritate somebody, right? Those are tactics, right? Those are things you got to find out yourself. How to be good. The book tells you to be good, to attack people that are corrupt, but it doesn't tell you about what corruption is or who is corrupt and these types of things. So this is one of the main problems with that chapter. Things have been distorted over history. The Quran, you got the war chapters, the Bible, books have been removed. Tesla, all his greatest inventions of endless energy have been taken, and just a few left that align with mainstream. And so this, the Art of War is no exception. To consider the fact that over thousands of years, nobody touched it, nobody paid attention, nobody cared. I don't know. That's a little bit. You have fire attack, and the use of fire must have a basis and require certain tools. There are appropriate times for setting fires, namely when the weather is dry and windy. So this is like telling someone how to take out a tooth or how to put in an engine. It's specific to fire as it relates to other things. Cannot be used on all things like the rest of the book, and that's a problem. Generally, in fire attacks, it's imperative to follow up on the crisis caused by the fires. Some of this stuff you could almost relate it, but it's kind of a hard time in order to do that. When the fire reaches the height of its power, follow up if possible, hold back if not. These things are specific to using fire. Fire, that's a tactic, right? And that doesn't go with the rest of the book. When a fire can be set out in the open, do not wait until it can be set inside of a camp. Set it when the time is right. When the fire is set upwind, do not attack downwind. That's similar to never fight uphill, only fight downhill. So it's almost like they borrowed from that. That's the only thing you can get out of that. As well as if it's windy during the day, the wind will stop at night. That part is also pretty much useless. Armies must know when their adaptations of the 5 kinds of attack and adhere to them scientifically. All right, so the use of fire to help an attack means clarity. Use of water to help an attack means strength. Water can cut off, but cannot plunder. It sounds like they're just trying to use words from the other chapters. Doesn't make sense. To win in battle or make successful siege without rewarding the meritors. Now here's where it gets good. There are some lines in chapter 12 that can be useful, and they're the very last lines of that. And it starts with this: to win in battle or to make successful siege without rewarding the meritors is unlucky and earns the name of stinginess. Therefore, it is said that an enlightened government considers this, and good military leadership rewards merit, right? They do not mobilize when there is no advantage, do not act when there's nothing to gain, do not fight when there is no danger. I definitely think everyone should be aware of that. I just said skip the whole chapter for beginners because this could really throw them off. Now, after you've read some of the other chapters, these lines, and you can read them in the beginning too, they're critical if you know where to start and when to stop. And then continuing on, a government should not mobilize an army out of anger. Military leaders should not provoke war out of wrath. I love this one. I did a video on this one. Act when it is beneficial or to cease if it is not. Anger can revert to joy. Wrath can revert to delight. But a nation destroyed cannot revert to existence. And the dead can't be restored to life. There's an enlightened government. It has to be careful about this. A good military leadership is alert to this, and this is the way to a secure nation. And that last set of lines says nothing about fire, how to use it. It's like they took it from another part of the book and used it. It reminds me of chapter 3, planning a siege. So, you know, to me, it doesn't belong there. I mean, it's that simple. So those lines, though, at those very last lines, all of those are beautiful. They're critical. I would use those. So it's not the entire chapter 12, but the essence of the book and showing you strategy is showing you how it applies to a tactic, but not really going into how to do that tactic, right? Like making someone mad, irritate the enemy, right? Doesn't tell you how to do that. Do not attack someone that is not corrupt, right? Only attack the corrupt. They don't teach you what corruption is, right? And we all know that's subject to interpretation, just like the art of war is subject to interpretation, right? Good and bad is subject to interpretation. So, and I mentioned about this, but that's the whole thing with chapter 12, and why I say for some reason it doesn't seem like it belongs, you know, in all ancient books. In most cases, like I mentioned, have been manipulated.